All right, Justin Simoni, thanks so much for joining me, man. This is the Do Big Things podcast. I appreciate you jumping on and being a guest, man.
Hey, thanks for having me on. It's my pleasure, of course.
Yeah, so I've been following you for a while. You've kind of been in my periphery for a while. Actually, I think we've ran a couple times together with the Rocky Mountain Runners, like back in the day. It was a few years ago, but so I've been following your Instagram and your YouTube and watching some of the crazy stuff you do. And you're one of the Boulder badasses, man. You're just always outside. I don't necessarily see you at a ton of races, but you're always out doing these self-supported adventures. And I know that you're probably chock full of stories and you're outside doing all kinds of stuff all the time. So I just couldn't wait to talk to you, man. So if you wouldn't mind, give us a quick introduction. Tell us who you are.
Oh, sure. So my name's Justin Simoni. I'm actually originally from Connecticut.
Okay.
And I moved to Boulder, Colorado to go to school and to go skateboarding. Actually, when I was a teenager, I was actually really big in skateboarding. That was kind of one of my hobbies of choice. The other one was actually rock climbing. And I went to CU Boulder, and that was a terrible choice for me. So I transferred to an art school called the Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design in Denver.
Yeah.
And then I hung out in Denver being a little art star for a decade plus, until finally I bought a bike as an adult at a thrift store for $14. And it was one of these, like, I am finally in love kind of things. I just remember riding it, to art openings and galleries into the store. And then I would just ride for fun. And there was that watershed, that sea change moment where I rode it from Denver to Boulder. And it was like the hardest thing I've ever done. And I couldn't ride back, and I couldn't even sit down because my legs were too cramped up, and I didn't even have enough money for the bus fare home, but somehow I got on anyways. And I realized, like, this isn't going to stop here. And within a year, I was riding my bike across the country. Wow. So I found something that I was extremely interested into. Yeah. So I've now ridden my bike across country 3 times.
Wow.
Yeah. I've gone, I've toured Europe for a couple months. I've lived in Europe for a little while and did some touring there. I've toured New Zealand, and all sorts of really great adventures.
No kidding.
And somewhere in between all that, I think I was getting ready for the Colorado Trail Race, the mountain bike race from Denver to Durango on the Colorado Trail with a mountain bike. And I hurt my hand. Like, I sprained my thumb or something, and I couldn't ride a bike well. So I took up trail running just to keep in shape or get fit. And that kind of worked well because there's a lot of hike-a-biking on the CT. So It worked in my favor, actually. But that's how I discovered trail running. And I'm like almost 30 at this point, like, this is not something that I started in junior high, and like the high school coach is like, the kid's got talent, get him on the team or anything. Yeah, so I started to discover that. And of course, in Boulder, we have the flat irons. And all of a sudden, like, my climbing background came in as well. Because, I mean, you can't run in Boulder without going, I want to not run, but just go up vertically that thing. How do I do that?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of the holy trinity of my base, I guess.
Yeah.
And then, I think I'm mostly known for riding my bike between mountains.
Right.
So I had two huge projects. One was the Tour 14er, where starting from Boulder, I just rode my bike to all the trailheads of the 14ers and hiked them to the summit, came back down to the bike and did it again 58 times. So that was in 2014. And then in 2017, I did basically the same exact project, but I did the Centennials, the 100 highest peaks. So almost double. And that took about 2 months of just going around Colorado on a bike, living off a bike and just visiting these beautiful places, some of the most beautiful places in Colorado.
Absolutely.
And that was probably one of the proudest things I've ever done, for sure.
Wow.
Yeah. So and that all started on one of my cross-country mountain bike trips. I was racing the Tour Divide. And again, the Tour Divide is a mountain bike race, self-supported, Canada to Mexico, do everything yourself. You just go until you can't, and then you go to sleep. You wake up, you eat a bunch of food, and you keep going.
Yeah.
And I was in Idaho, and Idaho is really pretty. And I was just passing these beautiful mountains. and, you know, just riding my bike along like I had been for a week or so. And I was like, wow, it'd be really great if I could stop riding the bike and just put it down and like climb this mountain and see what the view is from up there, you know, because it looks so beautiful.
Yeah.
So yeah, a couple of years later, that's exactly what I did. So yeah.
In Idaho?
It's nice yeah, in Idaho. Yeah.
Okay.
Right on the divide. There's like a fish, or there's like a wildlife conservation area. Yeah, kind of just to the west of the Grand Tetons.
Okay.
If I got that right. I might not.
No, that's okay. So the Tour Divide was after you did the all the 14ers and the highest 100.
Nope. I did the Tour Divide in 2011, I think, in 2012.
Oh, so that was first. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So I toured across the country just on a road bike, and then I toured Europe for a couple months, and I probably did New Zealand. And all these things got, you know, I just gained all this fitness, and what I found out what I love to do on these bike rides was ride the bike.
Yeah.
So for example, I had like a little tour, like a guidebook on how to ride your bike from Canada to Tijuana. And it had like, you know, things set up for days, like do this 30 miles and here's this awesome campground to stop. And I'd be like, do 30 miles. I'd be like, let's do 30 more. And just like keep doing that until I ran out of daylight, and then like search frantically for a campsite that's not right next to like Highway 1.
Right.
So I just realized I just loved like just the motion of riding a bike 10 miles an hour for forever.
Yeah.
So my idea of like why I did the Tour Divide was I met this guy named Big Dave Nice, Fixie Dave. And like, I just went to this bike shop in Denver called Salvagetti. And he's like the biggest, friendliest guy in the world, super helpful. And he just like he puts out his hand. He goes, "Hi, I'm Dave Nice. I race single speed mountain bikes across the country." You know, like, and that was like fixed gear mountain bikes. And I was like, that's a lot to digest. I'm not sure what you're saying to me. There are words, and I know the words, but they don't really put together.
Right.
But he's the guy that introduced me to what the Tour Divide was.
Okay.
And it's that 2,700-mile mountain race, self-supported, right through Canada, Mexico. And like, I just decided one day, I'm like, you know, I'm going to do that. So like in April, literally, I bought myself my first mountain bike, and I was like, well, in June, I'll just line up. What the heck? So that was my first mountain bike race.
So
how hard can it be?
You didn't do anything shorter than that beforehand in training. That was your very first mountain bike race.
Yeah, it was the first time I owned a mountain bike. Yeah. I went to Salvagetti. I was like, pick me out a mountain bike. I don't know anything about these things.
Wow. Nothing like just throwing yourself into the fire.
Sure. I mean, you got to do it sometimes. I mean, I knew how to tour, right? I knew how to ride bikes from sun up to sundown. I knew how to camp. Yep. I just needed to know how to do it ultralight, you know, and on varying surfaces. Yeah. So it's not a big reach. It's just, I mean, just go for it.
Yeah. That's so cool, man. So like, when I picture you, when I think of you, I think of like this sort of a dirtbag type of guy, like a guy who's always outside on his bike or hiking or running or going up and down Longs Peak. And, if I'm correct, you don't own a car, so you're almost bicycling everywhere. I mean, like, what led you to this life, man? I mean, in a lot of ways, you're living my dream life. Like, that's just the coolest thing ever. Like, how did you stumble upon this? I mean, you said when you bought a bike, it sort of changed everything. Was that it? Was that the impetus?
Yeah, it was like I've been car free for about 16 or 17 years.
Awesome.
And in that time, in my mid-20s, I was living in an art gallery, being a little art star. So what that means is like I would get up.
What kind of art were you studying or doing? I'm curious.
I graduated with a degree in painting and drawing at the Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design.
Cool.
And then I moved into printmaking, screen printing, and then like just performance. And what I mean with that, like we would just throw parties, or I was in a internationally touring guerrilla marching band.
Okay.
I toured all over the country doing that. I have there's a lot to me, I should say. So I was living in this art gallery, and every month, like we would just like throw parties multiple times a month. You know, if it's just an art opening, and I'd make art, and Yeah, I just had like a really, really crappy car. I had a Geo Metro, which is
Nice.
almost a car. It's mostly a motorcycle, but they took all the cool parts off and they just left with this shell that has like a 700cc engine in it. It's really, really funny. And I bought it from a guy who was getting rid of his car forever. I was like, that's good. What a weird idea to do. Why would anyone get rid of a car?
Yeah.
But sure enough, that was my last car. And I gave it away to charity because the gallery was located right downtown. Like it was across the street from the baseball stadium, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, sure enough, my car would just get broken into incessantly, you know, or like I couldn't find a parking place if there ever was like a game day. So it was like very inconvenient.
Mm-hmm.
And like one day, like the car just didn't want to start, or I could start like a couple times a day and that was it. And like, it wasn't worth fixing,
Yeah.
you know, throwing more money. So I was like, whatever, I'm just gonna like ride a bike. Like the grocery store is 2 miles away. Like I am drinking far too much anyways, like partying up like some sundown to sun up. And like, why don't I just ride bikes? And like, again, it just changed my life where instead of wanting to party all night, I was like, oh, you know, I'll just party a little bit, but I want to go to sleep because I want to wake up early for my bike ride.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that was the change in my life. It was just bicycles like drastically. Because I didn't grow up really doing high school sports or anything, you know, but I just have like an athletic family, I guess. Okay. So the genes are there. They just weren't being expressed.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like
it also means my knees are really still pretty good.
Yeah. What sort of athletics was your family into? And like, what was your upbringing like?
So for example, one of my first memories, and this is true, is going to Washington, D.C. Like we traveled from Connecticut so my father could run an ultra race.
Oh, no kidding. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And at the time, ultra races meant you were on a track, a high school track, and you just did laps, right?
Oh, yeah.
And like every 6 hours you changed direction. And like it's the craziest idea in the world. Like how boring does this race have to be? But he would just like, you know, tune into talk radio stations on his AM little Walkman and just do it.
Wow.
So that was kind of one of those things he was into. It was a family thing. But he was really into Sri Shinoy, who has that race in somewhere in New York City where you go on a city block for 3,000 miles. It's like the self-transcendent race. So that was kind of where its was. Yeah.
Did he do that race?
I don't believe he did, but he was a marathon runner, and every once in a while he would do those ultras. But he was a marathon runner when that was like really weird, you know.
Sure.
So he was, just kind of a really weird guy.
Okay.
And he has a military background, and so does his family.
Yeah.
My sister was a cross country star in Manhattan College. She had a full ride for a fifth year just because of her running.
Wow. And
she was the first woman to be inducted into their Sports Hall of Fame.
Oh.
So yeah, she's like the pedigree of the family. I'm like the runt.
But you do have the genes, it sounds like. It sounds like it does run in the family. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, like my grandfather was also a pro baseball player way back in the day. I have a very awesome picture of him with Babe Ruth. You know?
Cool.
So like Babe Ruth was doing some scouting, and there's my father looking just like me, I guess, without a beard, you know.
Wow. Are your parents, is your dad still around?
No, they both passed 20 years ago, actually. So I've been an orphan since. Yeah.
Oh, no kidding.
So it's part of my story though, because I have no home, so I might as well travel around and find myself kind of thing. So.
Okay. Okay. It's starting to make sense now. I'm kind of getting it. How did your parents pass away, if you don't mind me asking? Did they both pass away at the same time, or what happened there?
Oh, I mean, it was 2001, so it was like one of these like terrible years for everybody, kind of like this year. And sandwiched between 2000 or 9/11, right? My mother passed away from alcohol abuse. Oh, wow. Basically, and my father passed away from skin cancer. Oof. Which is crazy because I look like I'm genetically engineered to thrive in a bog-like setting, but my father looked like he was from the Mediterranean.
Oh, really?
So, okay. Yeah. So just an unchecked mole in metastasized.
Shoot.
So
okay.
my PSA for this is don't drink too much. Everything in moderation. And if you have a weird mole, like get it checked out.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
You learn from others' mistakes. That's pretty awesome.
I mean, to honor them, it was one of the reasons why I checked myself when I realized I was probably drinking too much.
Sure.
Like I was in my early 20s, and it was something that seemed very socially acceptable to get hammered. But like I grew out of it really quickly, and I was like, no, this isn't for me. And I never had like a really great tolerance, or like had a really great, like I would just get hangovers like you're nobody's business the next day. Like I still do. Like 2 beers is like my absolute limit. Like I'll just feel terrible the next day. Okay. So yeah. Okay. But to honor them, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna check this out, and just like be in the straight and narrow.
Sure. Yeah. So how old were you when they passed away? 2001?
I was only 20.
Okay. Yeah. So still fairly young. Yeah. Did that affect you in a big way?
I mean, I was right in the middle of school.
Were you pretty close to them?
I was super close to my parents growing up. Yeah. Like we were very, touch was very important in my family. Growing up, we had a sailboat, so we would take vacations together and go on these week-long adventures on this tiny little sailboat. So close quarters kind of thing. My father and I, we did a lot of, we would just listen to music together. So when we came to like a musical background or my tastes, it was very much influenced by him. His best friend, who was also a marathon runner, owned a jazz store in town. So like my childhood memories are also of going to this jazz store and hanging out in the back with all the cool dudes and listening to all this jazz music. And like I could recite who the jazz musicians were like at 5, or who like classical music composers were like at a super early age. Wow. And I just had that kind of like precociousness about myself that like carried on to everything I did. I was like that bratty kid. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you had a pretty diverse background, growing up in the arts, growing up with the music. It sounds like your parents were, sort of worldly. So,
oh yeah, my father was an intellectual. Yeah, he was into poetry. I was introduced to like the Beat generation through him. Probably the Transcendentalists, like the Emerson, the Thoreau. He was definitely like I think he self-titled himself like a peacenik, like a beatnik hippie kind of guy. Okay. Like he definitely helped people get to Canada during Vietnam War, and like his VW bus, like he was that guy. Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
So your athleticism kind of stemmed from your family and your parents. What else sort of rubbed off on you? Like, are you into literature? You're into art, obviously. Poetry, music, anything else that you're still into today?
I'm not in the touring band anymore. They're based in Denver and I'm in Boulder. And if you don't have a car, it's hard to get to practice twice a week. Sure. Mostly what I do is writing, and I'm now just producing silly videos. Yeah. Nothing crazy or I would say professional, just like for fun. Yeah. I always say that I'm going to take up drawing again, just as like a stress reliever, but I have yet to do that. But I think honestly, I think all the creative juices that flow out of me go into these large, like unsupported projects that I do. There's a lot of creativity that goes into it, and totally just imagining yourself doing it is one of the bigger steps of actually doing it.
That's true. Yeah. That's cool, man. So, okay. So you bought a bike, things changed, and then you started touring, and you said you went across the country first. Was that the first big tour?
Yeah, I think that was the first bike tour. I went from it's the classic Pacific Coast route. I really didn't know where else to ride a bike to. Like I was so oblivious to bike touring culture. So yeah, I had that $14 thrift store bike, and that winter I just built up a surly cross check from Craigslist finds, And I went on like maybe 1 or 2 overnight trips beforehand, I was like, okay, let's point her south. I'm sure everything will work out.
Good to go.
Good to go. Like I bought bike bags that were like older than I was off of Craigslist. I was like, these will work, The girlfriend I was going out with at the time was an amazing seamstress. So she like fixed them, like new liners in, so like my stuff wouldn't fall out. And
Oh,
yeah, it was a
wow.
grand old time.
That's cool.
Yeah. And like I said, like it was really fun because I'd stop at all the major cities. So like hung out in Vancouver, and I hung out in Seattle, and I hung out in Portland, and I had like a kind of a very loose, just a loose, like a friend web of people that I knew that lived in these places, so I could just crash at their house. So when I was in Portland, I like experienced the Portland bike scene, which is super rich, you know. Like we're just hanging out at, you know, a diner, and then in the night, like everyone has like tiny little BMX bikes, and we're like, you know, bombing a little hill. Like that's a thing they did in Portland. I was like, this is awesome.
Wow.
Or in San Francisco, again, has like a really rich bike culture, so you get to experience all these cool things.
Sure.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So
wow.
yeah, I was booked after that.
Yeah, totally. How long did that first tour take you?
About a month.
Okay.
Yeah. So was it 2,000 miles or so? I was in like,
Wow.
it was like I would go for these marathon like phases, you know, or like a week, and then I would hang out at a city for a couple days and just like do city life, visit my friends and stuff.
Yep. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. And then the next tour was in France. I was really into France for some reason. Like I learned French, and I like followed the Tour of France, and so I was loosely following the path of the Tour de France for that year. Like I was a week or two behind them.
Okay.
And so I'd see all like the markings on the road of all like, you know, their fan favorites. They'd write their names in paint, you know, and do all like the really famous Tour de France passes. That was super fun. Yeah.
Wow.
Like,
were you dirtbagging that? Were you dirtbagging that trip as well? Just going as like on the cheap as you could?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Totally. So what was really funny is most of my budget was exhausted on day number 1. I got to France. My bike got to France. Nothing else got to France. Like they lost my bag. So I didn't have bike shoes. Like I did the tour in like Puma soccer shoes, indoor soccer shoes, you know,
awesome.
Like I wanted like they were my town shoes. They were just these lightweight things. I was like, all right. So I had to kind of buy panniers and stuff and kind of all my camping equipment. So I didn't have much money.
Sure.
So I would just like, I would ride as far as I wanted, and then be like, that looks like a cool farm, and just like, you know, go underneath an apple tree, and hopefully no one finds me, and then wake up the next day. Oh yeah, it was great.
It sounds amazing. It sounds amazing.
Wake up. Yeah, wake up and like find the bakery and get some almond croissants and just like indulge, you know, like the baked goods in France are not that expensive. And then like work on my French, really adamant about my studying, and then like give myself a goal, like, okay, I'm gonna ask someone where the church is, you know, like try to use my French, you know.
Sure.
Yeah, it's so adorably cute, you know, like how I try to do it.
At that time, did you have aspirations of the Tour de France? I mean, you said you were following sort of their trip. Was that something that you were thinking about?
Yeah. No, I mean, like it's a totally different culture. Like I really got into, there's a bunch of documentaries about the Tour de France where like they will follow a team, and I really enjoyed that narrative, that storytelling. And I wanted to just see what France was about. Like when people think France, sometimes they just think Paris. And there's a whole lot more to France than Paris. Like it's a very diverse culture, or not culture, country. You know, they've got I went surfing. I mean, there's mountains. There's even like high steppes, almost deserts in France. So it's cool to see these different places.
Wow.
But to be perfectly honest, my biggest interest was the mountains. You know, I just wanted to go up and down these like incredible mountain passes. Yeah. You know, like they are just absolutely breathtaking. You know, and there's not many like in Colorado that can be compared to.
Really?
You know, like because like the roads are like, you know, 3 meters wide for, you know, 2 cars. It's like just so super pretty. Yeah.
Wow. How long were you in France?
That tour was like 2 months.
2 months.
So,
okay. Awesome. And you were how old?
August,
like young 20s, mid 20s? Yeah.
Yeah, 20 something.
Dude, that's so cool.
Yeah, all the pictures look just like this, you know.
Of course. And then New Zealand was next. Then you toured New Zealand.
Yeah, that was just a spur of the moment. I was like getting frustrated of like being inside in March or something. I have no idea. So I like the internet's a very dangerous thing. So you go like, plane tickets, New Zealand from Denver, how much? And you like look and you go, well, I can afford that.
Yeah.
Like, you're gone.
Sure. Yeah.
It was a really crazy trip because one, I didn't tell anybody. I just decided to go. In 2 weeks I was gone. And it was the first trip where I'm like, I'm gonna integrate going backpacking at the same time. Because what New Zealand's really known for is its tramping, right? You do a backpack to a hut. They have a hut system. There's dozens and dozens of huts in New Zealand. So you don't have to bring a tent or sleep outdoors. You just find a hut. So yeah, it was kind of like another like little problem to solve. Like, how do I bring all this backpacking gear on a bike? So I'm doing the bike tour and also I'm stopping the backpack.
Wow.
So that was really fun. And I did lots of dangerous and silly things, and it's amazing I'm alive. Like, for example, like the first time I did it, like I did this really popular track. I would just like leave my bike. I don't know, New Zealand people are so friendly. Like I would like look on the street and be like, you, can I leave my bike at your house? And like New Zealand people would be like, of course. Like I can't believe you haven't asked me before. I'm like, I don't even know you. They're like, that's not a problem. Like, do you need food as well? Like who are these people?
Yeah.
I have a sister in Christchurch. Are you going to Christchurch? Let me just give you a number. And they would just write me a number. Like I left New Zealand with like this fat wallet of New Zealand contacts just because they're the friendly people on earth. So yeah, like my first time I went tramping in New Zealand, it was like such a picturesque thing where you hike in 6 hours and there's like a 2-story quote unquote hut you can stay in. And right next door, there's like a hot springs, and you're like, "Oh yeah, I could get used to this." I was like, "This is awesome! I love hiking all of a sudden." And I looked like such a I looked like such a dork. I had like my gaiters on and my like floppy hat. I'm like, oh, I'm a hiker now. The second time I went tramping, it was a little bit different. It was on the South Island, and it was. Let me frame this. Like it was like Easter Sunday weekend, so April or something. And I checked in at the ranger station like you're supposed to because I'm a Boy Scout, but there was no one there because it was Easter weekend. And I was filling out the form, name, address, where are you going, what are you doing, how long are you gonna take. I remember one line, it was like, how long do we wait until we send in the emergency cavalry to find your body? And I was like taken aback. I was like, what a weird question. Nothing's gonna go wrong. Right. Nothing happens. I put like 99 days or something. I'm like, whatever, I'm fine. I set out on my tramp as like, an expert tramper now. And it was a really interesting trek because like you have to cross a river. And I was like, okay, cool, river. I know how to wade rivers, and I know, if the water level is too high, it's too dangerous. You can't do it. And I'm wading across this river, and like it's getting to that level, and then it goes a little over that level. And I was like, whoa, a little touchy there. But I get to the other side, and I'm fine. And I keep walking for like a minute, and I come to more river. Like I haven't crossed the river. I just got onto a small island in the middle of the river. And that other side of the river was raging. And I took one look to it and I go, not for me. And I turned right back down and tried to cross the river where I just had crossed it to get back to my starting point. And I couldn't do it. I realized I was in the midst of a flash flood because it's been raining all day.
Yeah.
So I backtracked it again and I just hung out on that island. And I was like, well, I'm sure this will pass. And I was stuck on that island for 3 days.
That's adventure right there. You just roll with it, man.
So again, like I was expecting to spend the night at a hut, right? So I didn't have a tent. So there I am in the middle of this raging river in the South Island of New Zealand. No one knows where I am. I told the Rangers, don't look for me. Like, this looks really bad on paper, right? And I'm like, it's raining because it's New Zealand. And I'm like getting really cold because it's not summer anymore. It's April. So it's becoming winter there. I'm just like, oh my God, what did I do this for?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was like one of these like life or death situations. And I had to just endure like 3 days of just being on this island and just like in a survival situation. Like there was nothing to make a shelter with. I had like a waterproof, like a pants and like a raincoat and stuff, but like I didn't have even like a baby sack. So my, my down sleeping bag was getting wet constantly. So thankfully again, I'm genetically engineered to live off recently unfrozen mammoth, meat and, like fjord living person. So like I was able to endure this, like just this unplanned bivvy of 3 days.
Wow.
It wasn't pleasant.
Did you have enough food with you?
Thankfully I had food. Yeah,
Okay.
I was planning to be out there for 3 days anyway. So food I had.
Okay.
I had a stove. So I was able to boil water.
Okay.
To, I did the whole Nalgene bottle of boiled water in between your legs while you're sleeping thing. And basically when it got dark, I would shiver myself to sleep. And every couple hours I'd wake up, like get out of my like sogging sleeping bag, wring it out, and then, make the water and put it down and just do it again until daylight.
Wow.
And then in the day I would just like pace the island. Now, like, okay, so I was in a flash flood. The water level was rising the entire time. It just didn't stop rising, right? So the second night had me, like actually I woke up in the middle of the night that second night and I flipped on my head torch and all I saw was water around me. So I was less on an island and more on like a high point of the river, like a sandbar.
Right.
So like also I get all my stuff together. I'm like wading in the middle of the river, like looking for dry land. And like my island turned into basically like, a 20 meter by 20 meter patch of higher land. I found this giant tree and I just hugged it. And I could see the water rushing behind, like by the side of me. And I was just waiting for the rest of the river to, get me basically and wash me.
Yeah.
That would have been Justin. And again, no one at home knew where I was. I wasn't on course to go to this hut, right? The rangers were told not to look for me. Like, oh my gosh. All right. So long story short, got across to the other side, checked into the ranger station, and they were like, oh, we've been looking for you. I'm like, oh, really? I was like, yeah, you never checked into that first hut. We didn't know where you were. I was like, I was a couple miles away. Dying. So I tell them the whole story, and they're just like, yeah, that happens. Like, yeah, people die all the time here. I'm like, are you kidding? They're like, no, man, it's New Zealand.
Wow.
I was like, wow. I was like, yeah, you never have found me for months, right? Like, and then you'd find me no identification, be like, who is this guy? And then no one at home would be like, what happened to Justin? He just disappeared. It'd be this like crazy mystery. I would have been that guy.
Yeah, totally.
It's so easy to do.
Wow. I mean, luckily we can laugh about this story now, but at the time, were you freaking out? Were you panicking? It sounds like it was a life and death situation.
It was that I am experiencing hypothermia.
Yeah.
And I know what that means, kind of feeling, where I just cannot stop shaking. And I knew the next step is you aren't cold anymore and you want to take off all of your clothes, kind of thing. So I was either like hoping that darkness and doom and death were going to hit me before that. Like I was honestly preparing to die, or that somehow I'd get through it. So what I started to do, and this is true, is I started singing Help by the Beatles. Like just to do something.
Yeah.
And I basically, it was like being on like a shipwreck island where there was all these tree branches. So I actually spelled out help for like a helicopter to see or something.
Oh, dude.
And it was to nobody. Like I wasn't near anything. So
yeah.
No one was looking for me. So I was like, and like for a long time, I was scared of water crossings.
Really?
Like they could be little things like in Colorado where it's like ankle deep, and I just be like, I don't know about this guy. Like try to like hop the bolt, like the little stones. I'm like, I'll find another way.
Right. Wow.
I finally probably got over last year when we were guiding in Alaska. And Alaska has some pretty crazy creeks, or just rivers,
Sure.
And I had to be the strong one and show confidence, be like, look at guys, we can make this, but we got to work together. And here are the rules. We had to scope everything out and be like, okay, it's fine. I'm fine. We're over this now.
Yeah. Wow.
Pretty crazy.
Very crazy,
but,
man.
Like, one of my superpowers is like, I can, like, coldness doesn't really bother me as much as being too warm, I should say. Like I'm terrible in a desert, but coldness, I was that dude like in middle school that would be snowboarding with jeans on. Like I was that dude, like no gloves, jeans, I'd be like, whatever. Maybe I'm Vin Hoff's like real son or something. I don't know.
Right.
Maybe I just know how to breathe well.
You got to breathe. You got to breathe right through it. That's it right there. Oh man. So you survived New Zealand. Were you ever focused on your career? You sound more like me, like you're focused on your life resume rather than your real career resume. What were you doing for work in between, or what were you doing? Yeah, right. I
went to art school. Like, okay, so let me frame this one. Like you do art school and then you take a capstone course, right? The capstone course, you read this book called Art and Fear. And the book basically outlines like, look, most people that go to art school never make art again, ever.
Right.
You're like, holy shit. And my teachers are like, yeah, you're not going to make money doing art either. So like get a day job. And I'm like, this is a crazy thing to tell me at the end of 5 years of school.
Right.
So my response was that like, it's like not me. Like I immediately moved into an art gallery, like worked at the art gallery, and just like became art. Like my art studio had a bed in the corner kind of thing. I'm like, all I'm going to do is wake up, do art, and go to sleep. Like that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
But thankfully, like I didn't make any money doing it, but thankfully, like being the precocious little kid I was, like in high school, like I somehow figure out how to write software. Like I was really curious about computers and internet and how this all works. And like, can I do it too? So like, yeah, I had this other path of just like I'm just a really good autodidactic. So I was like getting high honors in school, and I was like on the side, I was like, oh, I'm going to learn how to program computers.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. And as soon as I landed in CU Boulder, I had an internship at a web design company, and like that kind of career was taking off. And when I moved to Denver, I just did what I did with them myself, and that's how I got through school.
Okay.
Yeah, I just paid through school writing software on the side.
Perfect.
Yeah. I can't explain it. I mean, I'm not saying I worked really hard. I just worked smartly and like residuously, like I was making money, while being able to go to school. So like there is a really weird like left brain, like right brain thing going where like there is a logical side to me, but there's also a very whimsical and weird side to me.
Sure. And
like there is some friction in between, but like I can harness that sometimes and get her going. Good. But part of that, like I have been like extremely underemployed most of my life. So I have a lot of free time, but I don't have a lot of free money. So how do you optimize the amount of money you're spending to have the most fun with all this free time you don't know what to do with, kind of thing. So that's kind of what I've been working on. So like if I do take 2 months off, like it's a bike tour, and I brought like a little laptop with me so I could check in and work and at least answer questions. Okay. Because like, I don't know about you, but like France at the time, like I didn't have a cell phone, like I didn't have an iPhone, but like all the McDonald's had free Wi-Fi. So I'd check into a McDonald's, and France loves McDonald's. I have no idea. So I check in, use their free Wi-Fi, have some like coffee or something, and like do that for an hour while I'm touring, Yeah. So that's kind of how I swung it. I made it work.
Okay.
Perfect. It's like there's been harder, like this has been a really hard year, but there's been harder years than others where like, say like my tour divides, like, or even the Tour 14er, like I didn't have a place to live. I packed everything up and just did the tour, and I was like, I'll figure it out later. Yeah. And then came home and like try to figure it out later.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, does that add an extra level of stress while you're out there doing the Tour to 14er? Because like when this is done, I don't know what's going to happen. Don't know where I'm going to live.
Yeah, I mean, like whatever stress I felt, I mean, I think it was the girlfriend I was living with at the time that like was 10 times more stressful that I'm living here in a closet. Yeah. And she's like, look, I know this guy is smart. He's very funny. He's a great dancer, but like, I don't understand why he can't get his life together. And, part of it's like, look, I'm looking for a job, but it's actually very hard to find like a career oriented job if all you've done is work for yourself. You can't, I've always been like, look at my portfolio. I can do all these things. And like, people are just like, but how do you work with people? And it gave me like a little bit of like an issue where I'm like, am I just that much of a misanthrope? I'm like, am I just like, am I like a shut-in?
Yeah.
Like, am I one of these people that cannot work? Like, no, like, obviously I'm not, but it got me to this point where like, I made myself believe that I was that antisocial, where it's more like I just had an opportunity and I just ran with it because I had a lot of interest in things like that. So yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
But for the longest time, I thought I'm like, yeah, I'm just antisocial. That's what I am.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you don't get the idea that like I can't communicate with people.
No, not at all. I don't get that idea. But when I look at your Instagram profile, I think I wonder if this guy's just super introverted, because it seems like all he's doing is going out in the mountains by himself, or he's on the bike for a long amount of time by himself. The Tour of 14ers, it looks like you're by yourself. And I admire that. I mean, I'm pretty introverted too, but do you find, are you an introvert by nature, or how does it work?
Yeah, like that's the thing. Like I said, like I've always identified with being introverted. Sure. And as a kid, like I think I just preferred being alone, like drawing alone or skateboarding alone. Like I didn't have a lot of friends who shared the same hobbies that I did. Yeah. So like it just became kind of a normal thing. I was also like I was the fourth child. And my oldest siblings are 19 years older than me. Oh wow! So they were adults before, like when I was born. Yeah. So like I had siblings, but I kind of didn't, kind of thing. Yeah, and my parents like subscribed to the philosophy of you like free range kids. It's so much different now, but like I was just allowed to do whatever I wanted. Like as long as I got home, like it's so old school. Like, you know, they got married in the 60s. So like, yeah, as long as I got home with most of my clothes still on, like it was cool. They didn't mind. They didn't really care what I did. So just, you know, I would wander the neighborhood with all the other kids and do like, I lived in like a very beautiful, picturesque, colonial, white picket fenced suburban town. Okay. You know, it didn't seem like there was a lot of danger, you know. Sure. So I just ride my bike, and like sometimes I get like 20 miles away with a flat tire and like be like, Mom, come and pick me up, you know? Yeah. Yeah. And like I've always been more of an internal person. So like I have a very vivid imagination. So like, you know, like it's just easier for me to be alone sometimes, because like getting what's in my head out is kind of a struggle. Sure. Which is what I learned in art school, is how to do that. You know, I'd always get frustrated as a kid where I'd have this idea for a drawing in my head, but I could never draw it out. And I would just have to like work on that connection, you know, communication skills, I guess. Yeah. So, yeah. But like, it is like people get homesick, I think, or like they miss their loved ones when they're on like a month-long tour, like the Tour Divide. And I do, like, but I always know that like I'll see them again. There's no problem. You know, and maybe I've been a little bit callous and a little bit insensitive to what those other people need from me during those tours. I'll have to admit, because I'm just like whistling along, like, oh my God, I get to ride my bike for a month. Yeah. Think of all the cool mountains I'm going to see. You know, I'm like, I'm like in pain, hurting, and sore, but I'm just like, woohoo. Yeah. And like the girl, like I've always had, you know, the Tour of 14 and the Centennial trip, like I was always seeing someone, and they're just all like, you know, the text from them would be like, hello, are you alive? And I was like, oh shit, forgot to check in. You know, so that's like a weakness. That's something I've had to work on and be better at. Yeah. And like I don't think of it as like a positive trait in me. It's more of a thing I have to work on. So like now, like, you know, I have like an InReach Mini. I can send messages. I can receive messages. It works a lot better. You know, so I'm trying to think of people other than me, because I've had to think about me, because like, yeah, orphan kid, you know, like I've had to do it all on my own, you know. It's kind of like what you learn to do. But it's like, again, like one of those like survival skills where it's you grow out of it, or you should grow out of it. And maybe you shouldn't be, you know, relying only on yourself. Like self-reliance, the essay by Emerson was like my credo. I'm like, or just like listening to Henry Rollins' awful poetry. I'm like,
Oh.
yeah, that's me. Bare metal.
Yes, I am. The number is 1. I am alone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
golden alone. It's great
Well,
at the time, but you're just like, oh, he's put it down. I should probably put it down too.
no, man. See, you wouldn't be able to get this stuff done if you had codependency problems. You wouldn't.
Right.
So, it works out in your favor. You figured it out. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So, I mean, what I can do is I can compartmentalize it where like, I know I have high confidence that if I put myself in slightly dangerous situation, like I'm going to be alone for a week in the mountains in the middle of nowhere in extremely exposed area, mentally, I'm going to be cool.
Yeah.
Right. Like, but like, I have to first communicate with that. Like people like, I have these skills, don't worry. But I also know that when I come back, I can be more of a, a part of a web of people and, kind of like collaborate and just be a part of that,
Yeah. It's all about balance.
Like if I need to make a meal myself, huh? Yeah,
it's all about balance.
If I need to make a meal, I've got an Instapot. I can make my own meals, but I can also join a Thanksgiving meal. It's
sure.
2 things. I can't. It's not just one or the other.
Totally.
So yeah, I mean that's just called growth.
Tell me about the Tour 14ers, man. I mean, some people's, their life goal is to hike all the 14ers. There's 58 of them in Colorado. And, it's a big deal just to hike them all. But you took it one step further, man. You were biking in between all of these.
Sure.
Yeah. Talk us about
it seems as if I had like a very, like I moved to Denver to Boulder. And when I moved out of Boulder, I basically said I will never live in Boulder again. I don't even want to like visit Boulder. I hate this place. And sure enough, like like Chief Left Hand brought me back or whomever. And I expressly, I had the goal. I had a horrible breakup and a really bad relationship, and I expressly had the goal to do this trip. And I think at the time I had done like 9 very easy 14ers with another girl I had gone out with. And like, we just took her like Subaru Justy, which was one minor step above my Geo Metro. It was basically Subaru's version of a Geo Metro. And like, we destroyed the thing trying to go on these dirt roads. So I did a couple hikes and I did a couple mini tours with my bike going to like, I did Elbert. I did Elbert from Denver. It took 3 days to get there, and then I did it. It took a day to go home.
Wow,
that's cool. Like it just had this like I was like a feeling of accomplishment. Like you did something.
Yeah.
And I did a couple other tours where like I would ride my bike to Salida to do a gravel grinder. So I'd ride my bike, do the gravel grinder, get like second or whatever, take a day off, and like go hike up Shavano or something, and then like link it up like the same day. Like I'll do Elbert. What the heck? It's right up the road, right? And like it's just kind of fun, like like your mind swims with ideas where like I think I was hiking down Elbert in midnight or whatever, like after doing this huge marathon day. I thought nothing of it. You could probably just do all these mountains at once and like just keep doing it like I'm doing it. I'm like, it's not that hard, right? Right? Not that hard. So yeah, I started doing the numbers, I did my research. I'm like, has anyone else done this? And there has been a couple other people, right? And like, but I have like very little information. Like I would have like a web page on Bill Wright's website, his old fastest known website of like, it was an email from Buzz Burrell saying, this guy did it in 37 days. And that was all the information I had.
Right.
I had the information that someone did it. This was their time. So I'm like, okay, so that's the goal. I'm going to do it faster than this guy in 1997, And in my research, I found the first people who probably did it in around 1985. And it was these 2 brothers called Pete and Glenn Dunmire. And they did it on like 1985 era mountain bikes, with like 0 beta. And like, it was this old newspaper clipping from the Aspen Times. And it's just like them, like, like jumping around and like being like, woo! Like the pictures looked like they were having so much fun. Like this was like a super grand adventure.
Totally.
I was like, oh my God, I want to experience that.
Yeah.
Like this looks fantastic. This might be like the most incredible self-powered trip you can do in Colorado.
Yeah.
So yeah, I moved to Boulder and like I was living like Boulder has occupancy laws, and I was living super illegal and like someone like the mudroom of this big house, you know, like 6 inches wide, like 6 feet wide and 6 feet, you know, the other way in the square thing. I had a sleeping pad, like a camping sleeping pad, and my books and just clothes. And I just hung out there for like 8 months, like preparing, like it was like my little dojo, right? So I like get up, work, like go to the climbing gym, or, you know, do my laps on Green Mountain, and just like basically map out the route. Mm-hmm. I mean, the mapping out took almost longer than actually doing the thing.
Really?
You know, how do you connect all these mountains together in like an efficient way, you know, on a mountain bike that's relatively safe?
Yeah.
Because I really preferred, after doing the Tour Divide a couple of times, preferred like dirt roads, you know. And like a lot of the roads to the 14er trailheads are, you know, gravel or 4-wheel drive anyway, so that's perfect for a mountain bike. So yeah. But like I knew so little going in. Like I knew how to ride a bike forever, right? But like I had 46 mountains. Is that right? Yeah, 49 mountains. 49 mountains I had not done yet.
Right. Yeah.
Including all the hard ones except Long's Peak. Like it was a lot of like self-discovery of like, is this gonna work? Like there was a lot of there was a lot of times where I'd like stop at the end of the road and be like, there should be a right here to go over this mountain pass, but the road and the mountain pass do not exist. Like, what am I doing? Like it was fantastic comedy of errors. Like I had 3 bear encounters. Like the bear ate my food one time. The bear ate my bike one time. And, like the bear woke me up one time. Just, like, oh my God. I've never seen a bear in my life in Colorado. And all of a sudden, like, I am the bear man.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it was every day for that trip, you know, was just this, like, I had that feeling of like, I cannot believe that had just happened. You know, so let me break you down like a day in the life. Yeah. And please. Like I could pick every day, but like the first day I leave Golden, like I started at the American Mountaineering Center. I thought that'd be kind of cool as a starting point. And like I had to ride 100 miles to the trailhead for Pikes Peak. And then I was like, I felt great. I felt real chipper. So I did Pikes Peak, came back down, you know, there was a ranger on top of Pikes Peak. He's like, you know, it's like sun is kind of setting. And he's like, how you getting down? I'm like, I'm running. He's like, okay. And like, that's a Herculean day, like 100 miles on a bike. And then you just decide to do a 13-mile route on Pikes Peak. Yep. And then thinking like the next day you have to get up and just do it all over again, you know?
Sure. Yeah.
And like I think the next, you know, somehow I rode my bike to like Silver Cliff and did like all the Sangres, or not all the Sangres, all the Crestones mountains in a day. Wow. And these are pretty like kind of like, you know, upper level challenges. Like totally. That's 5 14ers or something, you know? I was just like, whatever, it's what I got to do. I got a timeline. And then I realized I like forgot, like there's another mountain just south of that called Lindsay. And I forgot how I was going to get to it. So I had to like somehow squeeze that into my schedule.
Just improvise.
I had no bait on how.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like, I don't really know how to do this mountain, but I'm sure it'll go. I mean, whatever. Like, I've been going to the climbing gym for months. I'm like, I'm strong. So,
wow.
It's just funny. It's funny. Like, I had no beta on these roads. You know, I hadn't ridden my bike in any of this route at all. I just like hoped it went, and usually it did, but sometimes it didn't.
Yeah.
And like the San Juans were like a whole nother level of like craziness.
Totally.
Because the riding's hard. There's so many mountain passes, and the mountains are like kind of tough. And like to do that, I think it took like, I don't know, it was just like a good chunk of time just to do the San Juans, you know? And again, like I would like roll up to like the Wilsons and I'd be like, yeah, that's cool. Like I've got 2 weeks on my legs doing this insane thing, but I think I'll just do, you know, Mount Wilson, Wilson Peak, and, you know, El Diente in a day. I'm like, fine, it's fine. Like, there's coffee at the end of the road. Yeah. I'll get to town. I'll get a burrito. You know? Like, talk about a trip where you lose a pound a day. Like, you know, I was, like hit a scale Lake City at the Backpackers. I'd be like, obviously this scale is wrong. Like, people were like, no. Yeah, I guess the paddling's gonna be easier.
Was the
But,
record
yeah, it just,
was the record for doing this really in your mind? Were you depriving yourself of sleep and just going balls out the whole
oh, yeah.
time? Yeah, totally. Okay.
Yeah, like I knew, like I was doing it as if I was riding the Tour Divide for
Okay.
sure. Like I was in that mindset of like self-powered mountain bike race,
Okay.
you know, for sure. Just like the Tour Divide or the Colorado Trail race or something. And yeah, I kind of wanted to hit the record. Just it was an arbitrary number.
Sure.
I forget the gentleman's name, but he did in like 37 days. Sort of did it self-supported.
Mhm.
Mostly, I think he like his wife met him a couple times to make him a dinner or something. But like as a historical thing, because I can't set rules for someone in the past and be like, hey, you didn't do it, you know. So I set my own rules basically on the Tour Divide. I basically copied, paste the Tour Divide rules and be like, this is the Tour 14 rules, and then added like how do you know the mountain stuff, like you got to summit on, you know, this way and that, and you can't use a parasail to get down or whatever. I don't really care. That's actually a cool idea. So like, yeah, I mean, the rules I was using were different than his, you know, so, but I really thought that 37 days was a stout time, but like
Totally
realistic because someone did it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you just believe what you believe and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So now like the time I have or whatever, like that's what's realistic. And like, dude, in 5 years, someone's going to destroy that time. You know, it's just great. It's fantastic. Humans are like that. Once they figure out like something is possible, they're like, oh, I totally want to do it.
Yep.
And like someone with a way more fitness and like, you know, intelligence than me will like figure something out.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. Look at the 4-minute mile. I mean, that's what everyone uses as, you know, a big baseline. When somebody decides it can be done, boom, let's do it.
Oh, I can do that too. Oh, go to space? We can go to space. What's space about?
Sure. You know, I randomly watched this movie last night. I think it was called like A Big Year or The Big Year, something like that. And it has Jack Black and Steve Martin in it. And so for this whole year, they're trying to go out bird watching and they're birding and trying to see how many species of bird that they can see within 1 year is the premise of the movie. And, you know, they're having all these family problems in the background, like losing jobs, getting divorced, because they have this big, crazy, arbitrary goal of going out and doing something that in the big scheme of things doesn't freaking matter. There's no money at the end of this big thing. And that's kind of what your life and my life it's what it reminds me of, you know, chasing down Nolan's or chasing down the 14er goal. There's definitely parallels there. I don't know why I thought back to that movie I watched last night, but so tell me about the Centennials. So what did you learn from the 14ers till you went and did the Centennials, and how long was the time span in between the two?
So 14ers was 2014, so that's easy for me to remember.
Okay.
And the Centennials was 2017.
Okay.
I'm not sure well, I mean, I learned how to do it, and I learned I love doing it. Like whatever it is, like the mode of transportation where you're taking a bike, and then there's a second thing you do. Like it's an awesome way to construct even a bike tour. Mm-hmm. So if you're like, I'm gonna ride my bike, I guess what I learned, sorry to ramble, but like on the Tour Divide or any kind of race, especially if it's a loop, you're like, what's the point of the bike ride? Mm-hmm. Like I got into like this existential kind of hole where I'm like, why am I even riding the bike? So I'm like, well, there's a destination, right? There's the end point. But I'm like, well, okay. How about if the destination is something else, like a mountain? I'm like, I also like hiking mountains. So like that became a driver where I'm like, oh, that's actually a cool idea. So if you're also developing your own bike tour of like, where are we going? It's like, well, pick another hobby or another destination. Mm-hmm. So in France, like one of my things I did was I visited all the art galleries because I'm an art museums because I'm an artist, and I wanted to basically check out all the artwork I learned in my book. Awesome. Because it's totally different. Or like go over all the mountain passes, you know, so people can like go on a bike tour and be like, I'm gonna fish. We're gonna fish. You know, that's an awesome goal for Colorado. Mm-hmm. Like I'm gonna visit all the breweries and like all the microbreweries in the state. Like that's a cool goal. You know, you can have your map, like one of these maps, and be like, yep, here are all the pins of all the breweries I went to.
You're right.
You know, it's actually kind of cool. Or like I'm gonna bring my Highline. We're just gonna like shoot Highline videos, or like you know, or bring rock climbing gear. And we're just like, in every county, we're going to do a cool climb, or like, those are super cool things to do. So, yeah, why did I do the tour Centennials? It was just the next step, right? Where I'm like, I still think that I want to do something that's going to be beyond awesome. Like the Tour 14 was pretty cool, and I still think it's like one of the coolest self-powered adventures you can do. Like it rivals it for me. It's like well beyond like hiking the Colorado Trail, or even like, you know, the Continental Divide Trail. Like the terrain is just like always perfect, you know. Like the riding is great. Like if you just did the riding part of it, you'd be like, that was a really great bike tour. But then you get to the mountain, and you're like, this is way better than anything you see on the Colorado Trail. You're just linking up like the best of. It's like having like your all-time favorite playlist like stacked up, and like, of course I want to do it again. Like I didn't want to do the same trip again, but I'm like, can I do something even more awesome? I'm like, yeah, all right. Well, what about these other mountains?
Yeah.
And like the bottom list, so the top list of the Centennials are just the 14ers, right? And the bottom are, you know, 47 other mountains that are almost as high, but not as much. So they're less visited. Sometimes they're farther away, and by and large, they're more technical. And there's less beta on them too. So there's more, you know, it's a great step up, and it's probably going to take twice as long. So I was basically like, I don't know how long this is going to take, so let's say just 60 days. So that was my goal. Again, I just made it up. But when you make a target, it's easier to hit than just throwing a dart at anything, right? So 60 days. So yeah, I just thought it'd be a really cool trip to do, and I wanted to get out there again, do something similar but different. And between the Tour 14er and my Centennial trip, Joe Grant did his own Tour 14er. Did this awesome job, and he did like in 32 days. I did mine in 34. I was like, whoa, that's pretty good. Like, let's be honest, Joe is a way better athlete than I am. Like, he's a professional runner, you know. So I was like, wow, like I didn't know I was that good. Like, you know, I had discovered running like 3 years before I did the Tour 14er. You know, like this is not. I'm not a lifelong runner. I was in a lifelong running family, but like I was rebelling as a skateboarder.
Right.
And another guy did his own Centennial trip, probably the first one on record. It was a lawyer from Durango, and I'm really bad with names, and I will apologize. I'll get his name from you. But he did his own Centennial trip, and I thought that was like the coolest effing thing I saw. Like he had like a support crew with him, but like he did it. And like I think he's the first one to self-power the Centennials for sure.
Oh, he did it on a bike?
He did it on a bike. He did it on like a Croffle bike. And he had like it looked like fun too. Like he had his friends come over and they hiked with him, and it was like this shared thing, way different than my style, where I'm like, you know, cold and alone, you know, Henry Long style. Yeah, I totally got inspired by both those trips, you know, because like, oh my God, these people are doing exactly the things that I love to do. Like, is this catching on? Is this now a thing that Colorado is known for? I'm like, well, I want to be in this too. Like I feel like I'm part of this zeitgeist. Like what else can I do? So yeah, I was like, oh man, I gotta do the Centennials myself, but do it self-powered this time. Cause that's just like, it's just my style. Like I liked, if I can do it unsupported, I would, but like, there's no way I can do 60 days unsupported. I can't bring 60 days of food with me. It's just impossible. Yeah. So I'll do it self-supported, you know? Yeah. And like, I basically knew the route, right? Because I had just done it a couple of years before. And like, to do the Centennials, there's just minor little differences. You go off 10 miles that way to hit a mountain or something. So I had a better understanding of like how to optimize things or what to expect when it came to the bike riding. And I had the fitness, obviously. And it was just about those 47 other mountains I never thought about that became my focus, you know. And oh yeah, it was just an amazing experience. There's some really beautiful mountains out there. I don't know what else to say. Like, again, the Wemmenich, like, it's just so beautiful. Like I would go, I guess one of the big differences between the Tour 14er and the Centennials, I called it the Tour of the Highest 100, was I would go and leave the bike for multiple days and do a huge tour, like a huge fast pack, right? Okay. Come back and then go along, because that was like the most efficient way. So I would do all the Sierra Blanca mountains at once. So like 5 5 or 6 peaks. So like Little Bear, Blanca, Ellingwood, California, Huerfano, and I think that's all of them. But like do it in like 3 days and then come back instead of going through 3 trailheads and hitting them and doing small hikes. But it was just a lot of bike riding if you look at a map. And I'm like, I don't want to do all that bike riding to all these little mountains. It's a long way between them all, and the transition period takes a long time to do, and like the timing's not right because in Colorado you want to start in the morning to avoid thunderstorms, and it's just logistically it's just easier to do big fast packs and just pick your trailhead really carefully.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had like all these awesome fast packs of like the Sierra Blanca, and then the Crestone group was a multi-day because I also had to do Mount Adams. And I was just devising all these awesome like off-trail routes, you know, going through all these peaks, usually just taking the ridge line. I was like, this is fantastic. But the weather issue was again like just next level, where I was out for 5 days, like hitting like 8 or 9 peaks, and like they were like the hardest peaks, you know, the most desolate, you know, technical, and like there was, I mean, the weather was just absolutely atrocious. You know, we were getting like a half inch, 3/4 inches of rain, which is not unheard of, but not what you want if like you're trying to do a 5.4 face that's 5 pitches long, you know?
Oh, God.
Yeah. I remember hiking to it, like a Wham Ridge on Vestal Peak, just one of the most outrageous looking faces in Colorado. You know, it just looks like the 3rd Flatiron, but it has human growth hormone, you know, the wrong crowd at the gym, and it's just like insane, you know. It's like, is that the Matterhorn? I'm not sure. I remember like I got hit by like 2 thunderstorms just like hiking in this silly thing from Molasse Pass, and like looking at it and like just dripping wet, and I was like, yeah, not doing it today. But I had to like, you know, I had to keep going. I had 4 days of food for a 5-day trip. Like I was literally just eating myself, and I had to just keep going to the next mountain to see if that one was in condition, and it wasn't, and I would have to like keep going south. I started on Molasse Pass and my goal was to go to the Chicago Basin, which is where a lot of the 14ers that in the Chicago Basin are. And yeah, so I kind of had to go all the way. I was doing an out and back. I had to go all the way out and do the mountains and hope on the way back that things were in condition, which were like Jagged and Vestal Peak were kind of the technical cruxes maybe of the whole trip. So thankfully they were. But like there was a lot of unknowns and there was a lot of luck. But I had so much fun just tramping around in the wilderness, like not quite knowing where I was, basing my route off of topo maps and, you know, trip reports on 14ers.com and going like, is this going to work? I guess. Yeah. But like also like super tired from like the month I've been out, and just like so elated and excited to be in this area and knowing how special it was, and in awe of like this idea I had. like I'm like, was this a great idea? I'm like, it's an awesome idea. So yeah, so kind of if anything, the Centennial project, other than being 2 months long, and that's a long time to be out on living on a bike, made me realize how I love doing these like multi-day fast packs. Yeah, so afterwards I kind of focused a lot of trips on just doing the fast pack part. Sure, because like first off, it's awesome, and second off, like you lose a lot of the complexities of also having to live off a bike. You know, there's no bike involved. So the next year, I think I did. I just basically fast packed the entire Mosquito 10-mile range. Mosquito 10-mile range is between Buena Vista basically and Frisco, Colorado. And it's kind of known because there's like a 30-mile section that's like, is it 30 mile? Big section that's over 13,000 feet. It never dips below 13,000 feet. So if you're going to do it, you got to be on that ridgeline the entire time. And it's one of the only places, if not the only places in the lower 48 you can do that. So it's very like geologically or topologically special. And my buddy Peter Backwin has tried to do the traverse from Weston Pass to Frisco like 3 times, and like for whatever reason, like he just hasn't finished it. Like he's kind of particular. Like if the conditions aren't perfect, he's just like, it's not classic conditions, I don't want to do it. Where I'm like, just bring it on. Like I'm a bruiser, you know. I can't believe I'm not an MMA fighter, you know. I don't have tattoos or, you know. So yeah, my idea was I didn't want to start at Weston Pass because you need transportation to get to Weston Pass. It's kind of up a gravel road, and I didn't understand how to do that without like getting a buddy to be like, can you just like drop me off and then you have to go, you know? Like I didn't want to do it with somebody and like do a car thing because I didn't have a car to contribute. So I did have a buddy that was going to Buena Vista for the weekend, and I was like, hey, can I just go in your van and then you can drop me off at Trout Creek Pass, which is like kind of the actual beginning of the range. And he's like, sure. I'm like, cool. So yeah, like it was a whim. It was like on a whim kind of idea where I'm like, he's like, I'm going to Buena Vista. I'm like, oh, cool. I had a project I was going to recon. I'm like, why don't I just do it instead of reconning the project? I'm like, if I'm going to spend all this time being prepared, I might as well just do the thing. And if I don't do the thing, I don't have to tell people I did the thing. So yeah, I just left. Like little if all like training for these things. So yeah, I mean, it's really cool where the Mosquito 10-mile range is like, it is an actual ridgeline. And once you get on that ridgeline, you stay on the ridgeline forever, you know? So I had a couple of days like sleeping at 13,000 feet, you know, in a little nook. It's just fantastic. It's just this really beautiful adventure within a small area, you know? And it's, again, like, when I'm on it, like you can look west and like you just see the Sangres, right? Not the Sangres, the Sawatch, and like you're looking at the Nolan's line basically. And it just so happened that Joe Grant again was doing his like unsupported Nolan's run, going north to south while I was going south to north. So somewhere in there we passed like 20 miles away on mountaintops.
Oh wow.
So, but I don't believe anyone has done the trip that I did, starting from Trout Creek Pass and going all the way to Frisco again.
Okay.
It's just it's just kind of like it's an investment of time, you know, and there's a amount of like skill set that you kind of need. Like the crux of the whole thing is like 5'7", you know, like it's not just a hike. It's not a Nolan's run. So like if you aren't comfortable at that grade, you shouldn't do it. And I hit that like on my last day, so I was like out of my mind tired. Yeah, it's got teeth. So, but like again, like I did it, and like my brother was waiting for me at like a dive bar in Frisco with like a hamburger. And like without him being there, I'd be like, I don't know where I'd be camping or sleeping, but it was nice knowing that he was there with the beer, you know, like waiting.
Yeah. Wow.
Message be like, dude, where are you? They're closing. I'm like, I'm trying. I'm moving down, like finally found a trail because all these things are trailless. But I'm like, okay, there's the trail down from like Mount Royal.
Is Nolan's 14 something that still interests you?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've tried 3 times now.
Yeah.
It's just been really crazy. I can't put it together. But the first time I did it was the year after the Tour 14er, and I was really filled with a lot of self-confidence. And I was like, this is nothing. Like, I don't understand. Like, it's not very difficult terrain. Like, I did my recon.
Sure.
You know, I spent, like, I was bike touring again for 2 weeks just in the Sawatch, like, you know, doing all the crazy lines you got to do, like the avalanche shoot on Yale, or, you know, I had it pretty mentally mapped out and I felt great. But it just didn't come together. Like I started north to south and I got to La Plata and I was like just a soggy mess of tears and like, oh, go pick me up. You know, like my girlfriend was at the trailhead, like doing her own thing. I was just like, please, I'm done. Pick me up.
Yeah.
Just didn't like it mentally it wasn't there. I couldn't put it together. Like I didn't have enough sleep, or I was sick, or something happened.
Sure.
So yeah, it became like a white whale for sure. So the second time I tried was last year, 2019. And like I felt awesome. I started south north. I thought that was a better idea. I still think it's way better to do it south north. And I was cruising and I just felt so awesome on each and every mountain. And then what happened? I got to Yeah, Yale. I got on top of Yale in the middle of the night, and that's not where you want to be, but that's where my timing was.
Yep.
I had to go down that goddamn avalanche chute.
Yep.
Like, I can't find a great line. Maybe one exists, but like I was like in the middle of a creek, and I was like, how did the creek get here?
Yep.
And yeah, I had to like pass out for a couple minutes at the trail between Yale and Columbia. And I woke up and I just had no go juice. Like the legs weren't working, and I was experiencing a massive asthma-like attack. I couldn't breathe. And like I was trying so hard to make forward motion. Like it was like the Terminator movie where he's lost all his limbs except one arm, and I was just like crawling, gotta kill Sarah Connor. And like I just couldn't do it. Like I was trying as much as I could, and I got on top of Columbia. So that was like my 7th mountain of that day and a half. And like time-wise, I probably could have gone forward, but I looked down to Pine Creek Basin and then back up to like Oxford and Belford. I was like, yeah, that's not happening today.
Yeah.
And a storm was rolling in, so I'm like, well, if I get stuck on top of Belford, I'm gonna be stuck in a thunderstorm, in a hailstorm. I was like, okay, cutting it.
Yep.
And like I was able to still like jog down to the trailhead for Columbia. Like it was just like my breathing didn't work.
Okay.
And it's something that's happened a couple times now for me. So this past summer, I think I tried again, and I tried south to north, and again, everything was clicking. I was having so much fun. It's like, it's such an elating feeling to get on one of these summits and be like, sick, I did it. And like looking forward to doing the next one. And like, I felt like my lines were really great, and you feel really great, like being able to kick through these off trail sections. But then again, I got to Yale, and like I was having trouble breathing again. I don't know what it is with Yale, but I always have trouble breathing near Yale.
Yeah.
So I was wondering why. I'm like, do I have a food allergy? Like I brought an asthma inhaler, and I'm jamming on it. I am jamming as hard on this asthma inhaler than you should.
Yeah.
And it's zero effect. And I'm like, is it like the cashews I'm eating? Do I have a cashew allergy?
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't believe this.
I'm
like,
so glad.
Like,
I'm so glad to hear you say all this, because I've been through all those things in my mind. Like I've attempted Nolan's a handful of times and just haven't been able to put it together as well. And you having your experience and coming up against the exact same problems as me. And yeah, I've been out there where I'm like, what is it that's happening? Is it, a food allergy? I thought that. Am I drinking some bad water? Like everything is going through your head. Like this seems like it should be doable. Why can't I put this together?
Is there pollen in the air that like these specific ponderosa pines are like killing? So yeah, it's still an unknown. I got myself a food allergy panel, and like I am not allergic to anything.
Oh, wow.
Which I kind of sort of knew, because like I grew up with a very gourmet, adventurous family. We would make all our food. We had cookbooks from around the world, so it was like I was exposed to every single type of food you could possibly do. And like I never had a problem. So like, it's not asthma, I don't think. It's not caused by the cold, I don't think. It's not. I'm kind of running out of ideas. So the next step for me personally is I'm going to go to a speech pathologist, and I'm wondering if it's a vocal cord dysfunction.
Really?
Where your vocal cords will close up, and then they won't open again to allow you to breathe. And it's some sort of like reaction to stress or breathing or
altitude.
Something. Altitude.
Okay.
But there are techniques to reverse it, and that's what a speech pathologist will teach you to do.
Interesting.
And it's not exactly a hard technique. You just have to have someone teach you how to do it.
Okay.
Which I'm psyched to try, because it means I don't have to be relying on medication, because you don't want to be like, albuterol is not something you want to take every day.
Yeah.
It means I can eat whatever I want, because that's what I like to do. And it will be a simple thing. So it could just be something that kind of unlocks something.
Wow.
But yeah.
I never would have thought of that. Well, good luck, man.
Yeah, thanks.
Crazy.
Check it out. But again, there's a lot of naysayers that are just like, yeah, I have that too, and you pack it up, and you're just like, no, like I'm not gonna pack this up. Like this is my passion. Like I'm not gonna just stop here. Like
Yeah.
I'm highly like, when I go to a doctor for like, say I have like a problem with like an IT band problem, like you kind of have to like talk to the doctor and be like, look, I am highly motivated to fix this. I will do whatever you want me to do. I will do it beyond your wildest expectations because this is my life. And doctors will be like, oh, okay, I didn't know that. I thought you're just a normal person that's going to deal with this aches and pain. I'm going to just give you pain medication to take when this goes. I'm like, no, that's not me. We're different.
Right.
And then you get a little bit of a different thing. But yeah, I mean, this is no way will I take no for an answer on this one.
Totally. Well, that's the right attitude right there, man. That's what it takes to get this stuff done. I can appreciate that. On a smaller scale, I know you're a big fan of the Longs Duathlon as well.
Oh yeah, a smaller scale.
It's only a 1 or 2 day adventure.
It's just a local hill. It's nothing.
Right.
Yeah, again, like I guess in 2014 is when I really started doing them often because I lived in Boulder and I was training to do the Tour 14er. So like what could be better training than riding your bike to a 14er, one of the harder ones, and then riding back. So like that's one way I gained a ton of fitness.
Yeah.
Like I would go and like the next time I'd go, I'd shave an hour off my time. I was just like, okay, well, here we are. We have, I mean, I can draft this. We're getting better. So, but it is a long day. Like in the summer, like I think my record is a little over 9 hours.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
Just like running the keyhole, like on trail, exactly. Like not a short route, but like, you know, I can jog up and I can blast down and the bike ride is at my aerobic limit or whatever. But in like present conditions where it's winter, like it takes me 17, 18, 19 hours for whatever reason, you know. You wake up, even tons of layers on, like booties and like got my floor mitts on my bike to keep my hands from freezing. And like I wake up at 2 a.m. going like, I don't even know my name. I don't even know what we're doing today. oh yeah, Long Peak Duathlon. That's what we're doing. I forgot. And like I click on the light and I see all my clothes already like put out for me. So all I have to do is put on the clothes and leave. But I also know that I put out those clothes 3 hours ago because I dawdled too much. Like, really get a good night's sleep. So I'm like, okay, sleep deprived, great. You know,
here we
time
go.
to jam on some.
Here we go.
Yeah, it's time to jam up the caffeine and just like put the headphones in, just go. If you start, you'll just keep going. And like, yeah, you know, like it's such a great route because, you know, the prologue is just going from Boulder to Lyons and it's a little bit undulating, but it feels like it's downhill. So you make great time. You know, you can do it way less than an hour. And then the next 18 miles is going up St. Vrain Canyon at like a 3% grade. And you just kind of like, it's unrelenting, but you just kind of get into a rhythm and I get some music on. I'm like, there's no one around, you know, and it's a legitimate canyon with like steep rock walls. And you're just like, I am in my own little world, you know? Sometimes you see the moon or a shooting star or like, you know, or just, you know, the constellations. And you're just like, this is peaceful and wonderful. And I get out and I get on the Peak to Peak Highway. And that's usually when the sun's kind of coming up. You know, and you usually get like it's coming from the east, so usually Mountain Meeker's getting like just a beautiful sunrise on it. It's like super red and awesome, and you get kind of excited and like somewhat activity, and then you turn on to the Long Peak Road that gets to the trailhead, and that's like a mile away from the finish of your bike ride. You're like, okay, it's gonna be a hard mile because it's straight up, but like I'm looking forward to like getting to the trailhead and transitioning. And then yeah, like any sane person would not, you know, start hiking up Long Peak in the winter at 8 a.m, but like there I am, you know. I'm usually like super sweaty from the bike ride, so I take off a layer and there's just like tufts of snow and frost that are like coming off like the worst dandruff in the world. I'm like, what is going on? So I have to like hang up things while I like, you know, use the pit toilet and like, you know, reorganize my food. And then yeah, like just take up, you know, start up the hike. Like in the winter time, I have a hard time running up that thing. I'm like more like walking with like purpose.
Yeah, for
like,
sure.
All the routes just take twice as long because especially now, like it's not super winter, but it's not the snow's not consolidating, so it's very middling, you know, like you'll be in like waist deep snow for like 10 feet, and then it'll be like bare dry, and you're like, what footwear should I be using, you know? And of course I'm like going super light because I gotta like haul all my gear on a bike, so like I look like a runner. I've got my like little running tights on, I've got like tiny little fast pack bag that can like fit my lunch, and that's it. I'm just like, is this really what I'm doing? But like, again, I have super confidence. I know the mountain left and right, up and down, so like it's just like kind of like a expression of moving, and you know, like moving with purpose. And you know, I know I've done these routes so many times where I'm like, I know all the little secrets and shortcuts and what to do, and if the conditions aren't super well, if I have an alternative. And you know, like there's some touchy areas when it gets snowy that I know that they just build up into wind slabs, and I know where to avoid them or where to get maybe a little bit extra cautious and stuff like that. So eventually I'll get to the summit, you know, and I'm like, yeah, I can just like looking, you know, I can basically see my house from the summit, or like, you know, see the Green Mountain in the first flat iron. I'm like, oh yeah, that's where I started. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I'll like check the time. I'll be like, wow, that's late. You know, I gotta get down, you know. And the problem with Long's Peak is it's just such a massive mountain that it blocks all the sun. If you're on the east side of the mountain, like it can be like 2 in the afternoon in winter, and like you are in shadow, and you will be in shadow the rest of the day, and that's gets cold. So kind of have to boogie. And then it's like, as soon as I get like the boulder field or whatever, no matter what route it is, I know I'm pretty safe, and it's just a big kind of trot back to the trailhead, you know. Cold
downhill.
All downhill. And yeah, once at tree line, you're just like, okay, I can kind of jam this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You actually pick up the pace a little bit.
Yeah.
But then, okay, so you're at the trailhead. So again, you've ridden 40 miles. You've done a 13-mile route on Long's Peak, and then you're like, oh yeah, just have a bike ride for another 40 miles home. And it sounds on paper like easy, right? You lose 5,000 feet of elevation, right? But in winter, remember, like there's something called like a wind chill factor.
So cold, dude. I don't know how you do it.
Like again, I'm just really good at cold weather. So like again, you've basically wetted out all your gear.
Right. Yeah.
And you're like looking at this 5,000 feet, and you're like, you know, you're going to go like 45 miles per hour plus down this hill, because like that's fun to do too. And like, you just have to go for it. You gotta know that like once you get to lines, you can like warm up. There's like a public bathroom you can like kind of chatter in for a little while. And, like, but like to get to St. Vrain, like it just seems like it takes forever. There's just all these little rollers, and on tired legs, like you just do not want to deal with them. Like you'll see a sign that says like, you know, they'll say emergency phone a quarter mile away, and you're like, okay, cool, I know where that is. That's the fire department at Allen's Park at the top of this hill. But you're just like, I don't know, a quarter of a mile is pretty hard. I hope that asthma-like thing doesn't hit right about now, because I'd be screwed.
Right.
Yeah, but once you get to St. Vrain, you're just like, okay, I'm set for like almost an hour, because you can literally coast to Lions. You can almost literally coast to Lions. And I play a game called Don't Use Your Brakes.
Nice.
Kind of get into a tuck, and you just like, okay, I'll work on my bike skills, and like, how can I get down this hill without actually braking?
Wow.
And that's fun. And usually I don't have really good brakes either, because like on the to-do list, you know, on my wall is replace brakes with new brake pads, and I haven't done that yet, so it's not even worth doing. And then Lions, usually like there's like a public bathroom I'll usually utilize, so I'm not making a huge scene, and then it's just that 14 miles to Boulder again. And again, it seems like it's all uphill. Like the rollers just seem massive and not in your direction, and you're just like, all right, I have to put on the most sing-along album I have and just like focus on the singing, because like I don't have to worry about traffic. No one's taking a right into my lane or anything. I just have to get to Boulder before my lights, like, you know, blink out. But yeah, for some reason I love to do it.
I love to do it too.
Time, right?
It really is. No, I've done the duathlon. I've done it maybe like 3 times, but every time I've done it is in the summertime. What impresses me is you're out there doing it in the winter. How many times have you done the duathlon? I'm curious. Do you know?
Dozens.
Dozens.
On my to-do list next to replace brake pads is figure out that number in what months. So the big goal is to actually do the self-powered Longs Peak project. And that means summit Longs Peak each month of the year, so 12 times, by a different route each month. And there's been a couple people that have done the Longs Peak project. Bill Wright, Peter Backwin, Kendrick Calloway, Charlie Nuttleman, a few others that I unfortunately forgot. But like, it's a handful. It's not that many. And like, I know all these people.
Sure.
No one has done the self-powered Longs Peak project, which means, starting at Boulder, basically where the bus stop used to be, and doing it that way. And there's good reason, right? It's ridiculous. Now, like, think about it, like in the wintertime, like, I mean, it's just like the conditions are so middling. And like the last thing you want to do, like even in like a safety kind of lens, is like have a 40-mile bike ride on your legs before you even go up and do like the cables route or something.
Yeah.
Like bailing from that doesn't mean just getting back to the trailhead where like there would be like, a thermos full of coffee. It still means 40 miles away. Like you really have to like invest in it.
Totally.
So I haven't done it. I've tried a couple of years. I tried this year, but like there was a few things that happened where Rocky Mountain National Park closed twice. So I just couldn't do it legally. I guess I could have poached it, but like I'm too much of a Boy Scout again.
Yeah.
I mean, I go by the Long Ranger. I mean, I can't be the breaking law.
How did that moniker come about, by the way?
I made it up. My first Tour Divide actually ended when I crashed out. I crashed out 100 miles from the finish line.
Okay.
And that Tour Divide was really interesting because 2011 was a really high snow year in the spring for the entire Rocky Mountains. It's when all these floods happened. And the race organizer at the time was like, whoa, we can't really have the race because first off, there's bridges out and like all the mountain passes, and there are dozens that go over the Continental Divide. Like they're impassable. There's still snow on them. I can't get 80 mountain bikers up and down these things in good conscience. So the race organizer had to make the hard decision. He's like, I have to reroute the line like fairly drastically. And I'm looking at this, like I get this email, I'm like, well, screw that. I'm like, this problem's solved with a cheap pair of snowshoes. So I landed in Banff, with my snowshoes, trying to get people interested in this idea of actually doing the actual line, the impassable line. And I was like, come on, it'll be fun. And no one was into it. I don't know why. I think they wanted to see their families like within 2 months.
Right.
So by the second day, I was out on my own. I was on the official line. Everyone else had done the detour because that's as close. Like by the second day, you'd had a detour. So by the first 200 miles. And the detour basically ended in Colorado. So we're talking about 3 states and a province of detours. Like I was getting ready for this race pretty seriously. Like I was putting on some major mileage. I think in March, I put 1,600 miles on my bike. And that's not even like counting like trainer miles, like watching Kung Fu movies in my own house.
Nice.
So I was like, I'm like, this is what I've come for, So yeah, by the second day, I was out on my own line in these impassable places where no one else is going to be, and I was like in last place. But actually, if you think about it, in the official line, I was winning because I was the only one that had decided to do the actual race. So I'm like, okay, cool. Oh yeah, all right. This is my first mountain bike race ever. And actually, this isn't really a mountain bike race anymore. This is a mountain bike snowshoe duathlon. And I have decided that this is the thing we're doing now. So yeah, things were going swimmingly, I guess, all the way to New Mexico. I was like literally on my last day. I was going to go to Silver City, eat a bunch of tacos, and like finish this thing out, in the border of Mexico. And I took like this like rolling kicker too hard, and I landed basically on my shoulder and tore it. And instead of triumphantly getting to the border of New Mexico and Mexico, I limped to the Jeep that was, coming towards me with a bent. Oh wait, I couldn't use that word. With a bent wheel, going, "Hey, help! ER now, hurting badly." So that's why I did the Tour Divide twice, really. But I was like, I kind of made a name for myself for doing this ridiculously, obnoxiously badass, or like some people would think it's a badass thing, some people would see it's complete stupidity, but like it's a fine line, right? But I was a little embarrassed, but I wanted to do the Tour Divide again, and I was like, there's a sign up sheet, like some spreadsheet, some Google Docs thing. So I put my name down, but I put it down as like the Long Ranger. Just so I was in, but it was a surprise. If you saw me at the starting line, you'd be surprised too, and kind of just stuck.
Nice.
And like, it's literally like the easy, like I transpose, I had one, instead of an E, there's a G.
Okay.
I was like, cool. I'm like, I was thinking though, I'm like, should I show up with like a cowboy hat and a mask? Like, how far do I take this?
No, it's cool. I think the name is stuck, man. I like it. The Long Ranger.
Yeah. I mean,
cool.
I did break the one cardinal rule of a trail name, and that is you pick your own trail name.
That's right. Yeah. So I'm curious, man, like what's a typical day look like for you? I mean, are you just brewing up these adventures in your head, or are you training for them? Or I'm guessing you're not spending time like in a gym lifting weights or running on a treadmill or anything like that. Or, I mean, what do you up to?
Yeah. Like, I don't have a coach. And I don't have any goals that are like, I didn't get into the Hard Rock lottery yesterday or anything.
You and me both.
So, yeah, exactly. I'm super goal oriented for sure. So if I don't have a goal, I'm just kind of like doing whatever I want, and like it's December 13th or 14th. So like I feel as if I have the time and the space to do whatever I want, Sure. I don't want to give myself pressure. But like if I do like start focusing on a goal, and then I go, okay, what do I need to do to accomplish this goal? And usually it's more skill based. So for example, like I'm Mosquito 10 mile traverse or whatever, or like the Milner to Berthen Pass Continental Divide route I just did that last summer. I go, what is it that I need to get done? What is like, are there skills that I don't know? So for example, on like the Continental Divide trip, again, I'll be on a ridgeline 4 days on end. I'm like, how am I going to drink water? What's the terrain like? Do I have to recon this? So go, there's a major portions that need a recon. I'm not just going to on-site this because I want to go fast. So if I don't go fast enough, I'm never going to finish it. And that's not what I want to do and the style I want to do it. So yeah, you go, okay, I'm going to plan some recon trips. And like, that's sort of the training, right? Like the skill, like learning how to do these large portions of the route is building up the skills, and actually doing it is building up the fitness for sure. And then when I can't do a 2-day trip or something, I'm just like going up Green Mountain or something, or going to the gym. I actually go to like in the normal times, I go to the climbing gym like every other day for sure. I'm not a great climber. I'm maybe mediocre, but it's a skill-based thing. How can I improve on footwork or my fear? I'm afraid of doing something. How can I be less fearful, or things like that? I don't often focus on strength or endurance. It's more like, do I have the drive to do it? Okay, it's built in. I'll do the mileage anyways. And if I don't have that spark, I just don't feel it. But again, like I think I just have like really good, I don't want to say pedigree, because like my parents are like, their grandparents were like, like artichoke farmers. It's not like I have anything. It's like, it's that farming strength,
Sure.
Like the fitness will come by itself. And like I have amassed a huge, bank of fitness already, where I just kind of have to polish it off now. And then like, if I have 6 months to do something, I can really optimize my body to do something, right now I'm like actually extremely muscular. Like I'll just I'm almost one of these people that like, I look at a weight and I just get bigger.
Really?
And so I don't even touch weights now. But say if I want to do like another Tour 14er, I'm like I probably want to like take some weight off.
For sure.
But again, like when I was thinking of doing the Centennial project, I actually went into that under trained, knowing that for the first month I would actually be training for the next month.
Whoa.
So I took the first month, yeah, I took the first month like slightly easier, knowing that I was gonna bury myself the second month.
Okay.
But I mean, we're talking about like 20 pounds difference in body composition within 2 months. Like it's kind of like not the most healthy thing to do.
Sure.
So, and that's in the back of my mind too, where I'm like, all right, I'm going to pay for this for like months later. But yeah, I mean, there's lots of things that are brewing in my mind. It's so hard this year to like figure out like what's summer going to look like. You know, I'm like, am I going to go for Nolan's again? Am I going to do Tour 14 again? Like Joe basically took my record. I'm like, am I going to like respond to that? Like, I don't know. Like, does it really matter? I don't really care.
Okay.
Or like one other project I'm doing is like, I would like other people to do Tour 14er in a more realistic touring speed. So instead of taking like 30 days to do it, I want to see people do in 90 days. Okay. You know, and what's that look like on paper? So I'm like, well, who's better to do the guidebook than the guy that's done it twice?
For sure.
Yeah, so that's a big project I'm doing.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, I got a lot of like ideas. It's more like the pieces I have in my brain, do they fit in the puzzle that is reality? So,
right. Yeah. So nothing definite for next year. You're just kind of, you got some things on the back burner, something.
The big definite I'm doing is a guidebook for the Centennials.
Okay.
Hiking.
Awesome.
So I'll be out hopefully every weekend doing that. For the harder mountains, I'll be seeing if anyone wants to join in. Cool. Because first off, like the technical bits, I want to like kind of beta test and see if the directions I'm getting or the routes I'm doing make sense to people, and get all like the climbing gear beta kind of set so people know exactly what they need to bring. So they don't have to bring like a double racked, like, you know, one pitch on TKL Mountain or something. So that's a big definite. But I mean, if I'm there, I'm like, it'd be kind of cool just to set like these FKTs for these single mountains, because I'll have them wired anyways. Be like, okay. And like when the book gets on sale, one of these, you know, millenniums, like, you know, like we could put that in the byline, like multiple FKTs on the Centennials, including the Tour of the High 100, which takes 60 days to do the 100 mountains. You know, whatever.
It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt.
Yeah, just more advertising for the book.
Yeah.
So that might happen. Or I mean, it's again like if you go every week and climb a bunch of mountains as much as possible, like that's a really great way to build fitness for a big project. That's just my own self. So maybe I'll carve in a week or something to do like another ridge run or fast pack of that, or maybe just Nolan's. I just don't know. Yeah. We'll see what happens with like, we'll see where I am in line on getting a vaccine too. That'd be nice.
Oh yes. Yeah. There's that as well.
Yeah. I mean, who knows, maybe I'll do some backpacking guiding this summer, or, you know, I mean, we live in Boulder, so like, or I live in Boulder. So like, it's, I mean, 6 miles away to a trailhead that has like awesome things to do. Like I can just do like laps on the first until I get tired doing laps on the first. And like, that's like an all-time trip. Like I'll be thinking about that forever, you know?
Well, now you've done that too, right? I know you did multiple trips up and down the second.
Yeah. I did 20 ups and 20 downs in the second.
Okay. How long
and
did
like
that take?
That's a cool thing where you like, you know, you're like, well, this is what I done. Your turn. Like, you know, you can see it's like funny to do or pointless, but it's like, okay, I mean, talk is cheap, dude. Why don't you do it?
No, it's cool as hell.
We're not. You know, if you don't want to do it, it's cool with me.
Totally. How long did that take you?
I don't know, like 16 hours or something. Like it was just a Thursday. Yeah. I was like, I told my friend, I'm like, hey, meet me at the bottom, like at 4 or whatever you want, and like we'll do some filming. It was it was just such a silly little thing to do. Yep. But I mean, there's so many silly little things to do in Boulder. So
absolutely,
you know, pick one.
Absolutely, I love it, man. It's so cool. So I'm curious, listening to all your stories and all these different things you've done, and I'm sure we've barely even touched on, you know, I'm sure you've done other stuff we haven't even mentioned, but like, what's your why when you look back? Like, why? Like, what's your why? Why do you do all this crazy stuff?
It's
singular reason.
It's how to succinctly describe it. The exact word I want is just radical self-expression. Yeah. Right? I have an art degree.
Yeah.
Like, what else do you want me to do but perform? And I'm,
Dude.
you know, it's going to be on my terms, right?
Yeah.
And that's why you don't really see me at a lot of like organized races. I don't have anything against organized races, and I'll do one myself, but like, it's not really on my terms, you know? Like, if I want to see how fast I can do a line, I want to pick the line. I have a drawing degree. I'm going to draw that line myself. So yeah, it's how I feel alive, for sure.
Dude, that's
Like,
it
find
right
out
there.
what makes you feel alive. Like, you don't have to do the same things I do. I don't want you to. I just don't want you to.
Yeah.
But I want to inspire you to find your line.
Yeah. Yes.
For sure.
That's it right there. Radical self-expression. I like it. That might be the title of this podcast. I love it, man. Very cool. Any shout outs or anything you want to give, sponsors or anything as we wrap this up, man? It's been awesome talking to you, Justin.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm you know, like, I'll have to shout out to Ultimate Direction, who has supported me ever since like the Tour 14 era. Also shout out to La Sportiva, who's helped me ever since the Tour of the Highest 100. You know, I can't do the things I do without a good pair of shoes. And
totally,
you find that pair of shoe that's yours, and you're like, I want this for my entire life. Yeah, those are the two I want to say hello, thanks to.
Right on.
You know, my brother for always being there with a beer.
Nice. Hell yeah.
And like, I would like to apologize to all my past relationships where I'm like, I'm sorry. I text more. I'm not as moody.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I'll pay you back.
And you've got a website, right? Where can people find you?
Sure. I mean, you can just Google Justin Simoni and that'll get my website. My website's just justinsimoni.com, but if you Google my name, you'll get my website, my Instagram.
Yep.
Maybe my Twitter, but hopefully not. What else am I on? Oh, I have a YouTube channel.
YouTube.
Too, so.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've been digging that, man.
You know, I had a website. Yeah, I had a website when I was 15, so I'm all over this stuff.
Oh, okay. Cool. I've been digging YouTube. I've been watching your videos over the last few days, trying to prepare for this. And man, you got some great stuff on there. I'm curious, what camera do you use?
Right now I have this guy. I have a GoPro Max.
Okay.
And this is really rad because it takes 360 videos.
Yeah, I've noticed.
And you can have it on like a long grip, and then it'll stitch it so it looks like it's just floating.
Yeah, I saw that. Okay.
It's like a faux drone without having a drone, so I can bring it into wilderness areas or whatever.
Totally.
And it's a super fun toy. Because I can download the videos on my phone and just edit it all on my phone, like during a lunch break or something.
Oh wow.
And like the videos are so complex and whatever, I can't do them on my laptop. Like the phone is more powerful than my laptop.
Do you use like a certain software to edit those videos, or a certain app?
Oh, it's just the GoPro app.
GoPro app.
And then I also have like this is a Canon GX7 Mark II.
Okay.
Which is kind of getting long in the tooth, but it's really good for doing like web blogs and stuff, or video blogs.
Yep.
Put it on a tripod. I think the footage is really great. It's a little heavy for like ultralight backpacking. Like Canon does make a different version that doesn't have as many bells and whistles, but basically has the same chip, the same sensor. But I really love this camera. It has a selfie mode. I think that's really important, where you can flip up the
of course, you got to have that.
Bring it to yourself and frame yourself. So
yeah,
I one of my favorite purchases for sure.
Cool.
So sometimes like on my trips, I have like both cameras and like all the batteries, and it gets a little ridiculous. But I mean, sometimes you don't want to go so fast that you're not documenting it. So
totally,
like I documented doing the Mosquito 10-mile traverse, and it became like a 3-part video, but I really enjoyed doing it or learning how to do it.
Yeah.
Or like when it comes to the duathlons, like I'm trying to make a guidebook for the Tour 14er, and I want to like have a way to document all these things so people know what to expect and to inspire them and be like, oh, what a cool route, or it's actually, again, it's like that 4-minute mile, like it's doable and you can do it too.
Yep. Yeah. Well, listen, I have a feeling that like if there was no YouTube, no social media, you'd still be out there doing all this crazy stuff. You know, some people, it seems like they're doing it for social media, and you don't seem that way at all. So,
oh, I do it to get a story. I mean, that's again what happened when I graduate art school. Like I want, like it's again like you live an examined life where like you go on all these like urban adventures. Like I'd go to see like the most mind-blowing music show I've ever seen in someone's basement, you know, or like a rundown warehouse, and you're just like, I can't believe this happened. Like I have to write it down in like a prosy way. So it's just a way of journaling for sure.
Yeah.
But again, like it's, you know, like as Christopher McCandless says, you know, happiness is not real unless shared.
Yeah. So, true. Yeah. You got to share it. That's really cool, man. Awesome. Well, you've been awesome to talk to, Justin. I really appreciate you taking the time. It's been fantastic, man. You mentioned Kung Fu movies. What's your favorite Kung Fu movie? I'm a huge fan. I got to know.
Oh, you know, personally, like I thought the whole IP Man, series was fantastic.
Yep.
Yeah, I would like watch them when I was on my bike trip. This is way before, what's everyone on the bike trainers? They've got like the very expensive setups or something. Not Zoom, that's what we're on. Anyways, like I didn't have like, you know, like it wasn't a video game, so I just like put my laptop on a chair or something and watch.
Oh, yeah, rather than like the Peloton or something.
Peloton, yeah. So like, you know, I'd be going on like aerobic speed, and then there'd be a fight scene, and that's when I go like kind of anaerobic for a while.
Yeah.
But it was like interesting enough that I would not fall asleep on their rollers.
Oh, I love it. I'm a huge Kung Fu fan. I had to know, man. So cool.
But like, yeah, anything Jackie Chan. Like, I find him highly creative. You know, there's ballet out there. So watching The Drunken Master, or like some of his Hong Kong movies are totally off the hook when it comes to like the choreography and the stunt work. You just like
totally, it's unbelievable. Like, yeah, how is it even possible? Did you ever see a movie called True Legend?
No. Was that a Jackie Chan movie or
not? Jackie Chan, man. It just came out a few years ago, and it's sort of you got to check it out. True Legend. It sort of brings together all the old school, like, you know, how they'd be flying through the air and what they were trying to do back then with the special effects. Now it's a sick movie. It's
nice.
You got to check it out. You would dig that one.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Yeah. Well, listen, man, thanks for chatting with me. It's been awesome. Just keep doing what you're doing, man. You're inspiring people. People are watching. Your YouTube channel's awesome. I love watching all your stuff. And like I said, you've sort of been on my periphery for years, and you're an inspiration, man. So just like
I said, I got a late start. So the knees are still good.
That's good. That's a good thing. So cool, man. Well, just keep doing what you're doing. Do big things, man. I appreciate you chatting with me. So cool.
Yeah. We'll cross paths soon.
I'm sure. Yeah, absolutely. Cool, brother. Thanks again, man. Take care of yourself.
You too, man.
All right. Have a great day.
You too.